Chapter 14. Roman suddenly opened his eyes. It was dark all around, but the bedside lamp was still on. The fear in his heart had not yet subsided. When he realized he was in his own bedroom, he sat up abruptly. Roman turned to look at the digital alarm clock on the nightstand. 3:30 a.m. He threw off the covers, hurriedly changed his clothes, and rushed out. The city was desolate and empty in the late night. Roman stood by the roadside and waited. Finally, he spotted a taxi. He quickly gave the driver an address and urged him to drive faster. The cab sped along the deserted roads and arrived at a residential area in the east of the city. Roman's heart tightened the moment he entered the complex. Jesse's panicked, trembling voice from his dreams still echoed in his mind. The elevator screen showed it was on the first floor. With a soft chime, the doors opened. Roman stepped inside and pressed the button for the 17th floor. He had come to the address Jesse had mentioned in his dream. His mind was racing. What if the dream was real? The numbers on the display kept changing, finally stopping at 17. Roman stepped out and walked to the door whose code Jesse had written in the copyright contract. He looked down at the keypad and entered the value of pi. A cheerful electronic sound chimed, and Roman's scalp prickled. He stared blankly into the dark entrance, lingered outside for a moment, then slowly stepped in. Only a desk lamp was on in the room. A slender figure in shorts and a t-shirt lay motionless across the desk, arms hanging limply. All his speculations and doubts became reality in that instant. Roman's heart sank. Emotions welled up, tightening his throat. Roman strode over, placed a hand on her shoulder, and gave a gentle shake. Jesse. The girl slid down bonelessly from the force. Her soft, slightly curly long hair cascaded over her shoulders with the movement, covering half her face. Roman quickly reached out and caught her arm. If he had been any slower, Jesse's head would have hit the corner of the desk. He held her arm with one hand, pulling her upright from the chair, while his other arm wrapped firmly around her waist to steady her. The hair covering her face fell away, and Roman saw the dried blood between her nose and mouth, trailing down to her chin and staining the white collar of her shirt in dark, rust-colored spots. Roman's expression darkened. Shit, he cursed under his breath. He lifted her by the waist, grabbed the bag hanging on her chair, and rushed out the door. The girl was slight and light in his arms. Her hair tangled around his arm, her eyes shut tight. The black hair and red blood made her palm-sized face look deathly pale. When Roman carried her downstairs, the taxi was still there. Perhaps sensing the urgency, the driver had waited cautiously. As they drew closer, the driver saw Roman carrying someone. He panicked for a second, then quickly got out to open the door. What happened? Roman scowled as he placed Jesse inside. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. To the nearest hospital now. A life was on the line. The driver didn't hesitate, hitting the accelerator and speeding toward the hospital. Jesse was taken straight to the ER. Doctors and nurses crowded around the bed. Roman stood a short distance away, watching expressionlessly, his hands gradually clenching. Then a doctor approached. The young lady is anemic and has extremely low blood sugar. She passed out suddenly. The doctor led Roman to a computer to fill out the electronic medical record. Patient's name? Roman had worked with her many times but had never remembered her full name. The doctor didn't wait for an answer. He turned and saw Roman searching through the girl's bag. Finally, he pulled out her wallet, took her ID card, glanced at it, and looked up. Mabel Tucker. A glint of light flashed across the doctor's glasses as he looked Roman over. Are you a relative? She's one of my authors. I'm her editor. Roman altered the truth slightly. She called me for help right before she passed out. We've never met in person, so I didn't know her name. The doctor eyed him doubtfully, but turned back to complete the record. He scribbled a few orders and handed them to Roman to take care of payment. Before leaving, Roman asked about her condition. The doctor said she needed to be hospitalized for observation and definitely couldn't leave that night. After completing the admission process, Roman moved Jessie from the ER to a ward. A young nurse brought a cart, took out four bags, hung them on the stand, skillfully inserted the needle into the vein on the back of her hand, and began the long infusion. Roman didn't sleep at all for the rest of the night. Less than an hour after lying down, Jessie developed a high fever. At first, Roman thought the blanket was too thick, but when he felt the burning heat on her forehead, he knew something was wrong. The nurse came and administered a fever-reducing shot before leaving. Roman sat by the bed, watching Jessie. Her face was flushed, and her breathing was labored. Compared to the lively Jessie from his dream, the person before him was as fragile as a leaf, as if the slightest pressure would shatter her. If I hadn't pushed her so hard, would she have ended up like this? Roman rubbed his face, filled with self-reproach. By daybreak, the last 4 bag was half empty. There were 4 beds in the ward. Besides Jessie, the other patients were all elderly. Since doctors made rounds at 8:30 every morning, everyone kept a regular schedule and began waking around 6 o'clock. The morning chatter had already started in the ward, but Jessie was the only one who hadn't opened her eyes. After being up all night, Roman glanced at the half-finished 4 bag, took out his phone to ask his boss for the day off, and asked the woman in the next bed to keep an eye on Jessie. The woman leaned over to look at Jessie and suddenly exclaimed, "Young man, I think your girlfriend's awake." Roman, who had just reached the door, immediately turned back. He braced both hands on the edge of the bed and stared at her intently. Jessie's eyelashes fluttered violently like butterfly wings for a moment before slowly cracking open. The heavy feeling that had weighed on Roman's heart all night seemed to lift the moment the girl woke up. His shoulders slowly relaxed. Jessie still had an oxygen tube in her nostrils. Her gaze was dazed. She blinked a few times in confusion and spoke in a hoarse voice, "Roman?" Roman was momentarily stunned hearing her call his name. "I saved a girl from my dream." "Yeah, you still remember me. That's a good sign." After speaking, Roman reached out and felt her forehead. It was still a bit warm. He thought she might need more medication to bring the fever down and started to stand up to find a doctor. But someone gently tugged his sleeve. He turned and saw Jessie pinching his cuff with her fingers, her eyes slightly red, but not with sadness. It looked more like tears of relief. "Roman, could I get something to eat?" The girl still looked very pale and especially pitiful. Roman paused, glanced down, and his Adam's apple bobbed. He suddenly felt as though something in his heart had softly crumbled.